This is a very important lesson in pronunciation and enunciating your words, because today we are taking a quick peek at Be My Horde, a 2D top-down survival roguelite from Polished Games. But is Be My Horde good enough to wake the dead, or does it belong 6 feet under? Let's talk about it, but before we do, head on over to patreon.com/idreamofindiegames to support us further and earn yourself some awesome perks. And don't forget to subscribe and check us out at twitch.tv/idreamofindiegames, where we are live with Gamer Ghoulfriend every Thursday. Your indie gaming community is waiting for you.
Peasants are getting angry. How adorable.
So what is Be My Horde? Well, you play as a necromancer named Moriana who can raise the dead in what I can only describe as something similar to Vampire Survivors. Moriana herself doesn't really have any fighting abilities, but she does have the skill of being able to raise the dead to compile an army of minions to do her biddings for her. There's a timer at the top of your screen, and your whole goal is to survive longer and longer, all the while killing more enemies to add to your horde so you can become more powerful. Because this is a roguelite after all, you can expect to die, and frequently, but with each death you can use the souls you've collected to unlock new skills and abilities. For example, additional scrolls of fate to add more helpful items to the map. Be My Horde is entering early access this June, which means that it has a little bit of polishing to go, much like the name of the development studio, in order to reach its full potential. In the hours I spent with the game, I only encountered a single playable level and really ended up seeing much of the same enemies over and over again. Right now, there just isn't a whole lot to the game. The good part about that is that it's very easy to pick up and play a single run, maybe a few runs, but the bad news is after a few runs, things start to become a little bit stale. I think my biggest issue with Be My Horde right now is the speed of gameplay. I am a person who really enjoys playing Vampire Survivors because of the quick hits of dopamine you get from killing enemies in a fast-paced environment. In Be My Horde, you really don't get that. Moriana kind of just stands there and lets her peons do the work for her, which is fine. That's her sole purpose in this game, but it really slows down the whole pace of the game and makes it feel like a little bit of a slog, especially because you keep seeing the same groups of enemies over and over again, and eventually you get overpowered, which seems like a completely unavoidable scenario a lot of times. It never does feel like you're getting any better at the gameplay loop. It just feels like you're unlocking enough things to make it tolerable. Further adding to the sluggish pace, Moriana stands completely still when she's resurrecting the corpses of the fallen enemies to join her horde, which brings everything to a complete standstill yet again. There are jars and containers scattered about the map which you can break, sometimes containing speed boosts and additional health, but you don't have those unlockables and jackpot moments like you do in Vampire Survivors, which really kept the excitement up at an 11. It also doesn't have as much strategy involved because of this. You don't have a certain route or skill set that you can hone and get really good at to improve your gameplay. You just have to kind of go with the flow and hope you encounter the right kind of enemies you need. The art is hand-drawn, so I do appreciate the effort to add some color here. However, it ends up being quite repetitive and ultimately looks a little flat and unpolished in its current form. Moriana herself is also quite flat, and I don't just mean the 2D effect. I mean, there's no background to her. She doesn't do anything to connect the player to her. There's no story that makes her exciting and interesting. The only really cool thing that I can think of is the way that she deteriorates as she takes damage, which has a pretty cool effect. And the map itself, just green. A whole lot of green. It almost felt like playing a golf game, it was so green. There are the occasional spatters of dirt, and sometimes it rains, but that's about all the variety you get right now. As far as sound design is concerned, I was really impressed with the soundtrack.
It's not an invitation to try again.
which I did find myself getting into pretty quickly. It's some hard-hitting rock with chugging guitars that I appreciated. However, overshadowing that was Moriana's quips that she kept inserting into every situation over and over again.
Ah, the sweet melody of victory.
Again, perhaps this is something that they plan to polish by the end of early access, which is supposed to be within a few months. If I had a dime for every time I heard her say, "When a girl says no, it's not an invitation to try again," I'd be a much richer woman. All in all, there's the foundation of a pretty cool way to adapt the Vampire Survivors formula here, with some glaring issues in its current state. The first of which is the pace of the game. We need to make it a bit faster. I do understand that you get some power-ups that allow Moriana to gain speed as the game progresses, but until you get to that point, it just feels like it drags on. And even so, having to stop every time you resurrect the baddies to join your army makes it feel like it's constantly stuck in the mud. I'd also appreciate some sort of opening story or plot line to connect the player with Moriana herself. Just having her be this sexy necromancer doesn't really do it for me. Perhaps it'll do it for some, but I'd love to see her motivation. Lastly, I'd love to see something added where you can increase your skills or enhance your character mid-gameplay the same way Vampire Survivors does. Maybe not exactly the same, but adding that element of skill on the fly is something I think this game would benefit from. Be My Horde will be releasing into early access on June 18th, so if you do check it out, be sure to pass along your feedback to the developers so that they can make this game the best possible experience, and do be sure to let us know in the comments below if you pick up Be My Horde or your personal favorite Vampire Survivors clone. Thanks for watching, don't forget to like and subscribe, check us out on Twitch and Patreon, and see you in the next video.